All right, let's talk about something called movement fundamentals. It's this really cool idea that looks at athletes not just as performers, but as, well, architects, people who actually design and build their own movements. But first, let's start with a question that probably keeps every coach and athlete up at night. You've seen it, right? An athlete looks absolutely incredible in practice drills. Perfect form, super explosive. But then the game starts, things get chaotic and unpredictable, and suddenly it all just vanishes. So why? What is that disconnect?
Well, according to the people behind movement fundamentals, or MOF, the answer is that we've been thinking about movement completely backwards. The idea is to stop seeing it as just a list of techniques to memorize. Instead, think of it like a language that athletes can learn to speak fluently and creatively.
And at the heart of this language are what we call movement primitives. The easiest way to think about these is as the absolute most basic building blocks of any athletic move. You know, like letters in an alphabet or notes in a piece of music. You don't just learn one word. You learn the letters so you can build any word you need. It's the same idea here. So how does the body actually learn to string these primitives together? Well, MOF looks at it from two directions at once. We've got top-down control. That's the brain, the coach in your head, making a plan and sending down the orders. But, and this is crucial, it also embraces bottom-up control. That's the body reacting and adapting on its own, in real time, to the environment. An opponent zigs, you zag. It's the fusion of both planning and pure reaction that makes an athlete truly versatile. And this really gets to the core of it all. We're not trying to build robots that can only do one perfect pre-programmed squat or cut. The real goal is to empower athletes to be problem solvers, to give them the tools to create their own solutions for whatever the game throws at them. They become the architect, not just the bricklayer. The whole philosophy is guided by this simple idea, the SAF principle. It's a gut check for every single thing you do in training. Is the movement safe, so we're not getting hurt? Does it help the athlete adapt to anything? Is it fun? Because let's be honest, that's where creativity comes from. And finally, is it efficient, so we're not just wasting energy? Okay, so that's the big picture, the philosophy. But what are we actually working with? Let's dive into the actual physical building blocks, the core elements you need to master this movement language. First up, everything, and I mean everything, starts with the vertical element. This is your engine. It's all about generating raw power, pushing force into the ground. Every jump, every sprint, every lift, it all begins with this vertical force. It's the horsepower behind almost every move you'll ever make. Next, we've got the lateral element. This is the art of moving side to side with power and control. In sports, this is the moneymaker. It's the crossover in basketball, the shuffle on the tennis court, the juke in football. Mastering lateral movement is how you control space, how you evade defenders, and how you pursue attackers. And last, but definitely not least, we have the secret weapon of elite athletes, deceleration. The ability to slam on the brakes and stop on a dime. It's so much more than just stopping. It's about creating time. That split second you gain by decelerating quickly is where you get to look, think, and make a much, much better decision about your next move. It's a game changer. Now, when a movement just doesn't feel right, when it's jerky, awkward, or inefficient, MOF has a name for that. Dysrhythm. You know that feeling. It's when things just feel off. And that feeling is a huge red flag for poor performance and, even worse, for potential injury. So a huge part of this is training athletes to feel that coming and instinctively avoid it. Okay. So we have our building blocks, our vertical, lateral, and deceleration skills. Now let's talk about the fun part. How does the athlete, our architect, put all these pieces together in the middle of a chaotic, fast-paced game? First, we gotta understand that agility isn't just one thing. There's attacking agility. That's when you're on offense, you have the ball, and you're the one making the first move. You dictate the play. But then there's defensive agility, which is totally different. That's all about reacting. You're responding to what the other guy does. You're using the same building blocks, but the why is completely different. So how does a brain process all this fast enough to make a move? It all happens in a lightning-fast cycle called the OODA loop. First, you observe what's happening. Then you orient yourself. Like, what does this actually mean for me right now?
Then you decide what to do. And finally, you act. Elite athletes just spin through this loop faster and more effectively than anyone else.
Which brings us to maybe the most important takeaway of this whole thing. The goal is not to repeat the exact same movement over and over. It's to consistently solve the same movement problem. The problem is, how do I get past this defender? The solution might look a little different every single time, based on the situation. And that's not a flaw. That's the whole point.
So, the million-dollar question. How do you actually train for this? How do you build not just the letters of the movement alphabet, but the actual grammar that lets you create your own sentences on the fly? The training bounces back and forth between two modes. First, you have technical preparation, or TP. This is where you build your tools. Think controlled drills, really mastering those basic building blocks. But then, you immediately switch to free application, or FA. This is where you go use those tools in messy, open, game-like situations. It's this cycle, build the tool, use the tool, that finally closes that gap between practice and game day performance. So really, it all boils down to one simple question you have to ask yourself, whether you're a coach or an athlete. What's the end game here? Are we training athletes to be robots designed to just execute a command? Or are we training them to be architects, giving them the skills and the freedom to design and build something amazing, effective, and uniquely their own?